Hi guys, this is Algebra 1 and Lesson 1. We're going to solve equations. Essential question: how do you solve an equation in one variable? Well, first we're going to solve equations by guess and check or by working backward. Before we do that, there's a vocab. An equation is a mathematical sentence that uses the equal sign to show two expressions are equivalent. So whenever you see this equal sign, you know that it's an equation. The expressions can be numbers, variables, constants, or combinations thereof. And there are many ways to solve an equation. We're just going to look at two methods today: guess and check and working backward. Guess and check is obviously you're guessing until you get it right, and working backward means when you think backward the opposite way, you're gonna solve for the variable using the opposite operations. So let's look at our first example. X minus 6 is equal to 4. That is an equation, right? We're gonna solve this equation using both methods. So first we're gonna do guess and check method. We're gonna guess 11 for x, so instead of x we have 11 minus 6. What's 11 minus 6? 5. Is 5 equal to 4? No, it's not. 5 is not equal to 4. So is 11 the solution of this equation? No. So then we need to make a better guess. The value 11 is too high. It's 1 higher, 5 is 1 higher than 4. So we're going to guess 10 for x. 10 minus 6 is equal to 4. And that is correct. So is 10 the solution of x minus 6 equals 4? Yes. Alright, so that was one method. We're going to use the other method, working backward. When we work backwards, we got to think the opposite way. We want x to be isolated. X is equal to a number. That's how you get an answer, right? In order to do that, what do we need to get rid of? This negative 6. Yeah? So what's the opposite of subtracting? If you take out, the opposite of taking out is putting it back, right? So you're gonna add 6 on both sides. Okay, and then you have x is equal to 4 plus 6, which is 10. So is this the value of x before taking away 6? We're going to check x minus 6 is equal to 4. Yes. Easy, right? Not so hard. So which method of solving do you think is more efficient? You're going to think about that and discuss it later, and then explain number 1. Solving one variable two-step equations. Another vocab. The solution of an equation is a value for the variable that makes the equation true. To determine the solution of an equation, you will use the properties of equality. If you look at this table on this page, we have 4 properties of equality. We have the addition property of equality, the subtraction property of equality, multiplication, and division. Basically, if you have addition property of equality, you have to add the same thing on both sides if you want to add. Okay, so if you have like, I don't know, a is equal to 2, right? Then if you want to add plus 2 on both sides, you have to do it on both sides. Just make sure you do it on both sides so that the equation doesn't change. So if a is equal to 2, you know that this side is going to be 2 plus 2 or a plus 2, whatever. They're the same thing because a is equal to 2, right? Equals 2 plus 2. So that would make sense, right? You have to do the same thing. Same thing for subtraction property of equality. You're going to subtract both sides. So if you have a subtraction property, if you subtract 2 for a, you have to do the same thing on the other side. Same thing for multiplication. Multiply by 2 for a. You're going to multiply 2 times 2. Divide, if you divide a by 2, then you have to do the same thing on the other side, 2 by 2. Okay, So that's the properties of equality. We're going to use that to solve equation in example 1. Example 1a, we have 3x minus 2 is equal to 6. We're going to use the addition property of equality. So in order to solve for your variable x, you need to get rid of this negative 2 and 3, right? That's what you need. So we're going to do, we're going to take care of negative 2 first. What's the opposite of negative 2? Adding 2. Yeah, so we're going to add 2 on both sides. And then negative 2 plus 2 is obviously 0, so that's gone. They're canceled out, right? And then you have 6 plus 2, which is 8. So then you have 3x is equal to 8. How do you get rid of 3 here? It's 3 times x, so what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So you're going to divide 3x by 3. You get 3x divided by 3 is equal to 8 over 3, which makes it 1x, which is just x, right? X is equal to 8 over 3. So that's your answer. Can you solve B now? You have fraction, but that's okay. You're going to do the same thing. Take care of the 4 first. Let's get rid of 4. What's the opposite of adding 4? Minus 4. Minus 4 on both sides. And we're going to combine like terms. 4 minus 4 is 0. 10 minus 4 is 6. And then that 1 over 2 is half, right? That means you're dividing z by 2. 1 over 2 fraction, this is a division sign, which means you need to divide. What's half? Like if you have a whole pizza, like one pizza, if you divide it by 2, you get half, right? So that's what this fraction means. 1 over 2. 1 divided by 2, right? So instead of dividing by 2, you're going to multiply 2. You're going to do the opposite. Okay, so 2 times 1 over 2z is just 1z. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Any number divided by 2 is 1. Remember that? Is equal to 2 times 6. Okay, so z is equal to, 1z is equal to 2 times 6, 12. Okay, so what's the goal when solving a one variable equation? I'll let you think about that. Okay, let's go to the next example. We're going to solve equations to define a unit. Well, we have a real world problem now. What's the point of learning all this? We're going to use it in real life to solve real world problems. Okay, let's look at 2a. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. began his famous I Have a Dream speech with the words 5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand, signed an Emancipation Proclamation. The proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln in 1863. But how long is a score? We can use algebra to find the answer. So we're gonna figure out how long a score is. Okay. So in order to understand the speech, you can use math to understand how long a score he means in this context. So we're gonna let a variable to represent the unknowns. So what do we not know right now? The quantity represented by a score. So we're gonna let s, you can just pick any letter, but we're gonna pick s here. Let s represent the quantity in years represented by a score. So s is equal to number of years in a score. Okay, now we got a variable. We're gonna calculate the quantity in years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So we're gonna get the data as much as possible from the problem. So what do we know? We know the quantity of years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, right? In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made that speech, minus whenever President Lincoln signed the proclamation, 1863, which is 100. So it's been 100 years. Right? So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used 5 score to describe the S length of time. So for him, 5S is equal to 100 years. Yeah? So we're going to write that as an equation. 5S equals 100. Yeah? And we're going to solve that equation. Solve for S. What's 5 times? What's the opposite of 5 times? Divided by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is just S. 100 divided by 5, we need to do the same thing on the other side of the equation. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So S is 20. A score equals 20 years. Alright. We got another example. This is filling in the blank. Can you do this by yourself? Okay, I'm gonna let you pause this video and then let you work on this and then replay it when you're done, because I'm gonna go over the answer right now. An airplane descends in altitude from 20,000 feet to 10,000 feet. A gauge at radar traffic control reads that the airplane's altitude drops 1.8939 miles. How many feet are in a mile? Okay, so what do we not know? How many feet that's in a mile? That's what we need to figure it out. So that's going to be our variable. Let m represent the quantity in feet represented by a mile. So m is equal to number of feet in a mile. We're going to calculate the quantity in feet of the descent. So the altitude is 20,000 feet to 10,000 feet. So 10,000. 20,000 minus 10,000 is 10,000. So the descent, the length of the height of descent is 10,000 feet. And a gauge described this quantity as 1.8939 miles. So, which means 1.8939 times m, the number of feet in a mile, is gonna equal to this feet. 10,000 feet. Yeah. And so we're gonna solve for m now. We're gonna divide 1.8939 by 1.8939. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Divide 10,000 by 1.8939. And we're gonna use the calculator. We can use a calculator. 10,000 divided by 1.8939 is equal to 0.528. 0.5280. So there are, we're going to round to the nearest foot. Oh, whoops, I forgot the point here. Sorry, let's do that again. 10,000 divided by 1.8939. Yeah, that looks like a correct answer. 5,280. 5,280. So there are 5,280 feet in a mile. Okay, that's it for lesson 1. We're gonna continue on with the next lesson. See you again.